Good evening, everyone. My name is Isabel Jenkins, and I'm the Associate Director of the Donnellan Office of Community-Based Learning, which is one of the programs of the J.D. Power Center for Liberal Arts in the World. And I am so delighted to be welcoming you this evening and to be introducing this talk, which is entitled Two Stories of Fostering Connection, Holy Cross and St. Mary Healthcare Center. And this talk this evening has two purposes. And the first is to illuminate the incredible partnership Holy Cross and St. Mary have built over the years through experiential learning programs that our students take part in. Our presenters tonight, Will and Julia, who I'll introduce in a minute, have both worked with St. Mary in various capacities during their time at Holy Cross. Their sharing of their stories with St. Mary will highlight all of the ways in which Holy Cross students and the St. Mary community learn from and serve each other. We're so grateful to St. Mary for opening their doors to Holy Cross students in so many ways. And I think one of the things you'll learn tonight from listening to Will and Julia is that the relationships that can come from community-based experiences are very cherished. And the second purpose of this talk is to share with all of you what can be possible during your time at Holy Cross through engaging with the J.D. Power Center. And Will and Julia will share about multiple programs and opportunities through our center, and I'll just take a moment to highlight what they're going to share, the programs they're going to share about tonight. So first is community-based learning and the CBL intern program, which myself and Director Michelle Stirk-Barrett, who's here, operate in the J.D. Power Center. And CBL, most of you in this audience are CBL students, so it's wonderful to see you all. But it's an academic experience where students engage with a community partner that benefits the community partner and that also enhances their learning in their courses. And then the CBL intern program is an opportunity for current CBL students to apply and be leaders in our office and help us do the work. A second program they're going to highlight is the Marshall Memorial Fund, which is also run through the Donnellan office. And it's a grant program where students and faculty can apply for money to do something with a community partner. Will has received funds in a variety of ways for St. Mary and will show about what he did in the talk tonight. And I'm highlighting it in particular because our deadline for that grant is February 12th, and I hope that some of the students here will be thinking about potential things they can do with the Marshall Grant with their community partners. A third program that Julia will highlight is the Academic Internship Program, which is an opportunity for students to hold an internship for about 8 hours a week and take a seminar. And juniors and seniors are eligible to participate in this. And Julia held her internship at St. Mary. Another program that Julia is going to talk about is the Nonprofit Careers Conference, which is a conference the week before classes start in January, run in conjunction with the Center for Career Development and the Donnellan Office of Community-Based Learning to open up to students the world of nonprofits and then to engage very closely with the community partner throughout the week. And St. Mary has been a community partner with us for 3 years, and it's been really wonderful for students. And Will and Julia both were on the St. Mary team last year for the nonprofit conference. And then finally, Julia's going to highlight the New York semester program, which she participated in, where students travel to New York and have a full-time internship and write a capstone project, and they also participate in a seminar. So those are some of the programs at the J.D. Power Center that they're going to talk about, and we're super excited to hear about your experiences. To learn more about everything that we do, we're the third floor, this hallway, right down the hall in Smith. So come to any one of our offices, visit our website, and we love to talk with students about how you can engage with us to really use that experiential component to your benefit through your time at Holy Cross. All right, so without further ado, I'm going to introduce Will and Julia. And through their sharing of their personal experiences with St. Mary, I hope they'll paint a wonderful picture about what our programs can do. So first, Will is a senior and a biology major. He's from Potomac, Maryland, and attended Georgetown Prep, the oldest Jesuit high school in the nation. He has been a member of the CBL intern program for 3 years. And while at Holy Cross, he's been an active member of Holy Cross NROTC and will commission as a surface warfare officer in May. And also at Holy Cross, he's been a part of the developmental biology research lab working with lung cells of dogs. And he's gone to spring break immersion in Appalachia twice. He aspires to attend military medical school one day and work in the Navy. He's a fan of DC sports, has completed 2 marathons, and enjoys golfing with his friends. And now Julia. Julia is also a senior from Centerville, Maryland, and at Holy Cross she majors in English, but has also taken many classes within the Health Studies department. Outside of her academics, Julia is the co-captain of the club field hockey team, a member of the club lacrosse team, and a member of Purple Key Society. After graduation, Julia hopes to receive her master's in public health. She also enjoys baking, reading, and watching her brother's hockey games at Assumption College. So please join me in welcoming Will and Julia, and we'll start with Will first, but thank you so much.
All right. Thank you, Isabel, for the introduction. First off, I would like to give a round of thanks to a few people here. Michelle Stark-Barrett, Isabel Jenkins, and Professor Daniel Klingard for their continuous support in making this talk happen. I would also like to thank Ginny Ryan for getting me started on this 4-year journey. Finally, I would like to thank Sandy Geller for welcoming me from day one to the St. Mary Center and its vibrant community. While everyone I just named is definitely owed a round of applause, if everyone could please give a round of applause for Sandy, that would be much appreciated by me and every student that she has worked with over the years. Now to begin. As Isabel said, my name is Will McAvoy. I'm a senior and I'm studying biology on the pre-med track. I'm also a member of Holy Cross Naval ROTC and will be commissioning in May, fingers crossed, joining the surface warfare community. For those who don't know, that is working on a ship. I've been visiting at the St. Mary's Center for the past 4 years and have been a CBL intern for the past 3. I'm from the suburbs of Maryland and attended a local Catholic grade school and went to a Jesuit high school called Georgetown Prep. After high school and transitioning into college, I wanted to find a sense of continuity, but was unsure where I could find it. I wanted to find the Georgetown Prep within Holy Cross. Funny thing is that while I found many great similarities between home and Holy Cross, and trust me, I love Holy Cross, as my friends will attest, I ended up finding the most comfort off campus at St. Mary. In high school, I spent 3 years as an active member of the Arupe Society, ultimately ending up as the president of the club my senior year. The club was one of the largest on Prep's campus, focusing on service with the life of Father Pedro Arupe, pictured here, as a motivation. One of the club's primary missions was to visit the Washington Jesuit Academy in downtown DC, a school very similar to the Nativity School of Worcester. While there, we helped students of WJA complete their coursework, work on their high school applications, and typically get destroyed in a game of pickup basketball or soccer. I enjoyed going every 2 weeks as it was a chance to unplug from everything and foster human connection with people that I would not normally get to know. Now, I wish I could stand up here and claim that I selected CBL all on my own, but that would be a lie. During my first year initial enrollment period, I selected Calculus and Chem 181 as my guaranteed classes. I thought this would set me up well for my aspiring medical career, which it did, but my GPA may beg to differ on that statement. That's all right. For my Montserrat classes, I was looking at an extensive range of topics and didn't know where to turn. I narrowed my selection down to roughly a dozen, but had to select a meager 5 from that list. Thankfully, my mom saw that I was struggling in selecting my Montserrat. She gave me the subtle nudge to look at what the classes with community-based learning had to offer. It happened that over half my classes on my list included a CBL component. In my first year, I was enrolled in Ginny Ryan's Montserrat class, exploring differences in the fall and modifying technologies in the spring. Ginny strove for our class, pictured here outside of Hanselman, if you guys are still in Hanselman, to get outside of our comfort zone and our traditional ways of viewing difference in our society. Together, we tackled questions such as, is it right to select in and out for certain genes? Should prenatal screening be allowed? How should we view the other in our society? We learned over the span of 2 semesters that none of these questions have any clear-cut answers. In addition to the coursework in Ginny's class, there was an incorporation of CBL into the curriculum. This meant spending an initially daunting 2 hours per week visiting a site in downtown Worcester where we were able to see firsthand the experiences of marginalized communities. With my interest in medical school, I thought I would be best suited in a site that had healthcare incorporated. This led me to become a volunteer for St. Mary. Going into this next step, I still viewed service as a way of just helping the vulnerable, looking at those I was working with as inferior to me. This would rapidly change in my first semester of reflection sessions, being a student in Ginny's class, and learning more than I ever thought I would from St. Mary. Now, about St. Mary. St. Mary is a Catholic healthcare center that is committed to providing compassionate short and long-term care. With a maximum capacity of 117 residents, the center is always busy. Each week, I visit with a resident and spend some time with them. When I first started, little did I know how much of an impact these visits would have on my career trajectory and overall experience at Holy Cross. The impact of these visits was further made apparent to me through reflection sessions facilitated by CBL office and the interns. I'm appreciative for their time and Janie's cooperation in handing over the class to them each week. On my first day at St. Mary, I spent some time going through orientation with Sandy. We discussed the do's and don'ts of volunteering at St. Mary. But from this conversation, the biggest thing that I pulled away from this encounter was how much she took pride in the quality of care that she gave to the residents. She emphasized to me that if I see any mistreatment, I should report it to her immediately, as this is not tolerated. She then went on to explain that I will be held to the same standard as I am now a member of the healthcare team at St. Mary. I felt honored and grateful for this trust that she gave me within the first visit. We then began to talk about me, my extracurricular activities, hobbies, and passions. Sandy served as the coordinator and informal matchmaker for Holy Cross students and the residents at the center. She wanted to get to know me, so I would be matched with a resident with whom I had similarities. When I mentioned that I was in NROTC at Holy Cross, her eyes lit up and told me that she was going to try to pair me with Commander Cliff. She told me that he was a retired Navy veteran who never took visitors other than his wife, but thought he would make an exception for me. We then took the elevator up to the 5th floor to visit Commander Cliff, pictured here. He was dressed in khakis with a U.S. Navy polo on and a Navy veteran cap. He was as close to being in uniform as he could be without wearing the camouflage. While he was wearing a coat here in the selfie, I can guarantee that his shirt was smartly tucked in. He was legitimately dressed to a T every single day I saw him for over a year. I walked in with Sandy, who Commander Cliff kicked out in under 30 seconds and had me stay. He had me standing at attention, for those in military know, that's like this, answering questions that any naval officer should know. What's an E5 in the Navy? Who's the chairman of the Joint Chiefs? Who's the secretary of the Navy? I seemed to pass this test after about 10 minutes, and he asked me when I would be returning. I was authorized by Commander Cliff to visit him every Monday afternoon and was instructed to come with military questions. Having been a veteran of World War II, Korea, and Vietnam, I was very excited for this opportunity. Initially, our conversations were focused on my career aspirations and listening to his career. Commander Cliff had attended Yale as a Navy ROTC student and came to Holy Cross once a month to train in the 1940s. Like me, he had the joy of carrying telephone poles and ammo cans up and down College Street. He was happy to hear that this practice hadn't changed in over 80 years. As time went on, however, we began to open up to one another. I learned about his family, his wife. At one point, he mentioned to me that his wife was also in a nursing home, so I asked the next obvious question, what floor is she on at the St. Mary's Center? He responded that that wasn't the case. He explained how his wife did not need as much assistance as he did, and as such, his health insurance would only pay for a lower level of care that matched her needs. He explained how it was tough living away from his spouse for the first time in over 70 years, but cherished every visit that he made to the center. This story ultimately drove me to my final paper topic for my Montserrat class. I analyzed how often couples such as Commander Cliff and his wife are separated in their final months due to healthcare legislation. One day, I hope to make a difference in limiting the effects of policies like this and others. I noticed that I was receiving more than I was giving for the first time in service. I never would have thought of a final paper topic had it not been for Commander Cliff and his wife. Initially, I felt uncomfortable in this new role and wanted to repay my debt. Commander Cliff loved to read the newspaper every day. He was a Worcester native and avid fan of the Worcester Telegram. So following the motto of it's better to ask for forgiveness than permission, I borrowed a copy of the Worcester Telegram every Monday to give to Commander Cliff from Kimball. I also brought him a coffee from Cool Beans too. Just a quick side note for anyone in healthcare, make sure to check with your nurse or your doctor before you give anything to your patient. After our visit, I took comfort knowing that he would have some entertainment in addition to many activities that Sandy ran each week. In the early spring, I thought that I could do more. I felt like Commander Cliff was not the only one at St. Mary who would benefit from additional daily newspaper subscriptions at the center. I also recently heard about the benefits of using technology as a means to limit isolation. With the help of Isabel, Sandy, and Ginny, these seemingly random ideas turned into a grant proposal for 6 subscriptions to the Worcester Telegram, 6 subscriptions to the New York Times, and 6 Amazon Kindles, all pictured here. I submitted the grant application to the Marshall Fund Committee through the Donlin Office of Community-Based Learning, as Isabel said, and heard back shortly after with their approval. The CBL office helped me order supplies, and within a few weeks, I was already hearing the positive effects of the grant. I also thought that I could do more on Holy Cross's campus. Over my freshman year in Ginny's class, I realized how appreciative I was for the students who put themselves out there and explained their experiences in CBL. I thought that I want to be like them, helping other students comprehend what they are experiencing at their respective sites. As such, I applied to become a CBL intern and was luckily accepted into the role. This was yet another blessing in disguise. As a CBL intern, the tasks and assignments greatly range, but for me, that included reflection sessions in class, facilitating talks on campus, and helping students comprehend their experiences in Worcester. Being awarded a Marshall grant and joining this community of the CBL interns left me feeling grateful and accomplished for my freshman year. I was ready for a nice summer break. I left Commander Cliff in May, excited to show him photos of my upcoming training in San Diego, where I was able to fly a Navy plane over Coronado Beach, climb a 40-foot pilot's ladder in rough seas, and travel on a nuclear submarine in the Pacific. Unfortunately, I never had the opportunity to show these photos to him. As I was hopping onto a ferry to meet up with my family at the beach in early August, I was contacted by Ginny, Ryan, Isabel, and Sandy, stating that Commander Cliff had passed away. I wasn't devastated, as I knew that he was in his 90s and had lived a great life, but I was sad that I lost a true friend, a mentor, and essentially another grandparent. He helped me get my feet wet in the Navy as well at Holy Cross. He was a clear-cut avenue to get my mind off of schoolwork and allowed me to see the bigger picture every week. As I'm about to enter into my career of naval service, I reflect even more on our time together. For all of this, I was so appreciative and didn't think I would be able to find another connection like him at the St. Mary Center. Within a few weeks of his passing and in my new role as a CBL intern, I didn't think that I could return to St. Mary just yet. Isabel Jenkins, the Associate Director for the Donlin Office of Community-Based Learning, consoled me, saying that the center will always be there for me, should I choose to return. She helped me look at other options within the greater Worcester community, and I ultimately selected going to the Worcester Transition Program for a semester. I absolutely loved my experience there, but near the end of the semester, I knew that my calling was to return back to St. Mary. In returning, I was paired with a few residents who only were at the center for a short time, often passing within a few weeks of my first visit with them. I think Sandy knew that I wasn't ready for a long-term connection just yet. I didn't even know that was what I needed, but it was. It helped me realize that even several months with a resident is not a guarantee and every moment needs to be cherished. Near the beginning of my fall semester junior year, I ended up spending several months with a nun named Sister Ellen, who had been at St. Mary for nearly a decade. Sandy thought that we both would be a good match, as she was a career biologist, having received several master's degrees, including one from Holy Cross, an honorary degree. I was excited to visit with her and selfishly excited for the potential of another tutor for my biology classes, because trust me, I need them. In my first visit, it was clear that she was someone special. On that first day, Sister Ellen explained her obsession with birthday cards and solicited my help. Each month, she took time to handwrite birthday cards to every resident. She always used to say that everyone deserves something on their birthday, and this card was her gift. Unfortunately, her health had continued to decline, and she was unable to write these cards anymore. When she asked if I could help, I happily accepted. From then on out, every fourth visit or so consisted of writing birthday cards with the same quote every time. Happy birthday from your friends at St. Mary. In further reflection on that iconic birthday message, you can see how she embodied her faith as well as the culture of St. Mary. The center is truly a special place, and I was thankful to be a part of it. At one point, I must have mentioned my experiences with Sister Ellen and how kind she was to me each week to my girlfriend, Megan Trainer. She asked if she could tag along for a trip to St. Mary to experience what I got to do each week, simply sitting and talking with a resident. This seemingly one-time trip continued for several months. Megan and I had a blast visiting with Sister Ellen every Friday afternoon, pictured here. And she loved to wear that shirt, We Love Our Jesuit Pope. Can't read it. Throughout our visits over several months, Sister Ellen's passion for gardening began to show. She always had a plant in the room and loved to reflect on it, often discussing how her passion for gardening launched her into a career as a biologist as well as a nun. She spoke that she would love to garden again one day, but was confined to a wheelchair and could no longer reach the garden beds on the ground. One day at the side of Sister Ellen's bed, Megan and I discussed the possibility of building a garden that all residents would be able to use. Sister Ellen was pumped. After a few Google searches, we found that elevated garden beds with an emphasis on wheelchair accessibility were very attainable. This launched us into another application for a Marshall Grant. A few weeks later, we heard back from the Marshall Grant Committee with the approval as well as an important connection. In the committee's decision letter, there was a recommendation to get in touch with Professor Stephanie Christ, a sociology professor who I had Soc 101 with my freshman year. She was a board member at the Worcester REC, a local nonprofit that helps out community gardens, especially getting them started. She discussed the process of gaining accreditation as an official community garden and what benefits that would provide. This included access to compost from downtown Worcester, saplings grown in Holy Cross Greenhouse right behind me next to the burial grounds, and then also invaluable information for novice gardeners that Megan and I were at the time. This solidified in my mind how the professors at Holy Cross are more than just teachers. They're mentors who are well connected and ready to help students achieve their goals. During this time of preparing for the inaugural season, however, Sister Ellen passed away. We were sad that she was never able to experience the garden that she inspired, but we're definitely confident that she is upstairs giving us some good sun each day to let the garden grow. She remains an inspiration to us every time that we go out to the garden. As you can see from these images, the garden has been a great success. At St. Mary, even gaining some publicity within the local church. Residents, their families, and Holy Cross students have benefited from spending time at St. Mary, seeing the flowers, smelling the herbs, and getting their hands dirty. I now visit with a resident named Vicky, pictured here in a tie-dye shirt, and she truly is the brains behind the garden with Sandy's help nowadays. When it became warm enough outside, Vicky proved invaluable in planning the garden. She provided insight not only to me, but also to other residents and students on what grows to trim, what plants needed more water, and when to harvest the food. Her years of gardening were essential to the garden's success. Without her, I don't think I'd be as skilled of a gardener as I am today. I felt accomplished knowing that Megan and I had successfully implemented a new activity at the St. Mary Center, and I knew it would be there for years to come. I also took comfort knowing that Vicky and other residents, in addition to Sandy, would be there at the ready to pull weeds, plant the saplings, and water the flowers. Several residents mentioned to me that from this garden they now have a purpose in life. I felt honored to play a part in that. I am grateful for learning about marginalized communities through Ginny's class and the reflections that the Donlin Office of Community-Based Learning facilitated. With that, I turn the floor over to Julia to talk about her experiences with the St. Mary Center. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Will, for sharing your story and your comments. As Will said, my name is Julia D'Ambrosio, and I'm a senior English major here at the college. Throughout my time at Holy Cross, I've taken a combination of English classes as well as classes within the health studies major, since I've always had an interest in healthcare and literature. In the past 3 years, I've been really grateful for my involvement in the J.D. Power Center and the Donlin Office of Community-Based Learning. These opportunities have allowed me to discern my vocation and create strong personal and professional relationships with the residents and the staff at St. Mary's Healthcare Center. The path that initially led me to want to pursue a career in healthcare and ultimately led me to my internship at St. Mary last semester started in high school while volunteering at the local hospice in my hometown of Centerville, Maryland. At the time, I was looking for a way to get involved in my community, and I'd always been drawn to the hospice center because they provide incredible support to people facing insurmountable loss. I started out doing just small things at the hospice center, like putting together volunteer information packets or decorating patient rooms for the holiday season. However, after volunteering for about a year, I wanted a little bit more involvement. So I got involved with Camp New Dawn, pictured here on the screen. Camp New Dawn is a grief retreat for children and teens. The camp takes place each year over Labor Day weekend, and it consists of yoga and music therapy sessions as well as other ways for children to find healthy ways to express their grief. As I participated in these activities, I really enjoyed being a part of a community that takes care of one another, and I felt that it was a great way to get involved in the healthcare field. To be in the healthcare field, you need empathy and compassion, and it's so important in caring for a person holistically. And so each year at Camp New Dawn, I witnessed community and healing that cared for the well-being of not only our campers, but also our volunteers. My work at Camp New Dawn solidified my interest in working in the healthcare field, where I could work every day to promote health and wellness. So when I came to Holy Cross as a freshman, I knew that I wanted to continue serving my community as I did with the hospice in my hometown. And I wanted to study English and biology and somehow find a career in healthcare. While my interest in English and biology may seem on completely opposite sides of the spectrum, I think Paul Kalanithi, author of the class of 2020's assigned book, When Breath Becomes Air, really explains this symbiotic relationship best. For those of you who don't know, Dr. Kalanithi was a neurosurgeon who died unexpectedly in his 30s from cancer. He attended Stanford as an undergrad, and he studied English and biology. Dr. Kalanithi perfectly captures why I wanted to pursue an academic path of health studies in English. In his book, he explains that literature is a rich account of human meaning, and that medicine gives rise to the most innermost conflicts that form human meaning and questions of life and death. So in short, I came to Holy Cross wanting to study human meaning, connection, and empathy, and I knew I could best do that through courses in literature and health science, as well as one day in a career in healthcare. However, as I sat in my Intro to Cell Bio class, which is more commonly known as Bio 161, I realized that I wasn't exactly like Dr. Kalanithi. I wasn't inspired when learning about the chemical pathways that ignite the fight or flight response, and I wasn't exactly inspired while memorizing each muscle and bone in the anatomy of the pig. Instead, I was inspired by human meaning and understanding, and I found that I could better understand human meaning in my 18th century novel class while reading Jane Austen, and I gained better understanding for diverse cultures in my Intro to Global Health course or in my medical anthropology class. So while I had figured out that practicing medicine probably wasn't the right path for me, I was still really confident that I wanted to work in the healthcare field. With that, I began to pursue opportunities that allowed me to learn about the various administrative and business roles within the healthcare field, and this led to my involvement with St. Mary. I first became involved with St. Mary when I was participating in the 2019 Nonprofit Careers Conference, as shown on the screen, hosted by the Community-Based Learning Office. I had decided to do the conference because I'd always been passionate about community service, and I was interested in learning about the various careers within the nonprofit sector and those careers that would help me dedicate my career to helping others. One of the most exciting and valuable parts of the conference is the case study. Each conference participant is put on a case study team, and each team is assigned a different nonprofit in Worcester. As participants learn about their assigned nonprofit, the representative from the organization tasks them with a challenge their organization is currently facing. Team members then must work together to devise realistic solutions that the company can use in addressing this challenge. Will and I were fortunate to be placed on the St. Mary case study team, and for our challenge, Susan Downey, the head administrator at St. Mary, instructed us to evaluate whether the food service department was satisfying residents, and we were encouraged to create solutions that improve the quality of the food as well as the service residents were receiving. In the brief few days that we were working with St. Mary, our team was able to make a site visit to the facility. With our hairnets and gloves on, my team members and I followed the food service manager through St. Mary's kitchen, learning about the processes involved in preparing and delivering food to residents. As we learned the system of delivering food to each resident, we also surveyed thickened Diet Coke and pureed eggs, which were kept in the kitchen to accommodate residents that have difficulty swallowing. I remember being struck by the accommodations that must be made to serve the elderly. While this may seem like a very small detail, the kitchen has a very large responsibility to deliver the correct meal to the right resident, or there can be serious health complications. As we were learning the reality of caring for the aging, I became fascinated with the challenges that accompany one's everyday life as they get older. Something as simple as having eggs for breakfast can become a challenge. This experience allowed me to have a greater appreciation for organizations like St. Mary's and their commitment to maintaining normalcy in an aging resident's life. I also gained a better understanding in the small yet significant ways that an individual's life can change as they get older, and how these changes can affect their quality of life. My experience at the Nonprofit Careers Conference transferred really seamlessly into the following junior semester in the spring. I left Worcester and moved to Brooklyn Heights, New York, where I would live while participating in the New York semester program offered by the J.D. Power Center. Through a very generous Holy Cross alum, I had been offered an internship with the operations team at Care for the Homeless, another nonprofit healthcare organization. And actually my alum on the left, that's Ron Lawson. He graduated in the class of 1975. And to the right is Jan Kelly Villa. She graduated last year, class of 2019, and is now an operations associate at Care for the Homeless. So Care for the Homeless, as I said, is a nonprofit healthcare organization, and it provides shelter, social services, and healthcare to the homeless population of New York City. As an operations intern, my role was to aid the operations team in building healthcare centers and shelters in 4 out of the 5 boroughs of New York City. Along with these responsibilities, I had the opportunity to write a few community needs assessments. These reports assess the need for healthcare services in low-income neighborhoods throughout the city. At the end of the semester, I was offered the choice to stay on as an operations intern throughout the summer. I was very excited and extremely grateful for the extension of my internship. In the summer months, I was able to see the grand opening of a shelter that I had helped to build, sit in on focus groups that allowed individuals experiencing homelessness to tell their stories and express what they felt they needed more of in terms of healthcare, and I was able to make lasting and impactful relationships with my coworkers. What I expected to be a 4-month stay became almost a full year of living and working in New York City, and I was extremely grateful for the professional and personal growth that I gained in my time away from Holy Cross. As I finished my internship at Care for the Homeless and quickly approached my last year at Holy Cross, I was starting to think about what I would do after graduation. I've taken many courses in the health studies department, such as medical ethics, global health, and medical anthropology, and before I went to New York, I was considering a career in public health. After my internship at Care for the Homeless, I became confident that public health was the field I wanted to work in. I'd realized that every day, both administrators and healthcare professionals at Care for the Homeless were improving public health through their dedication to providing housing and healthcare for the homeless. Through addressing the systemic issues that cause the negative health outcomes in a population such as the homeless, I could too make a difference in people's lives and address public health concerns such as chronic disease and the prevalence of mental health among marginalized populations. Therefore, my time in New York helped me realize that I was passionate about public health. However, it also taught me that public health is a really broad field and that I had a lot to learn. So after graduation, I decided to pursue a master's in public health. When I came back to Holy Cross to start my senior year, I knew that I wanted to go into public health and apply to master's programs. However, I wasn't sure what my future career in this field would look like. Before I'd gone to New York, I'd thought about pursuing a career in healthcare management. So when I saw that the J.D. Power Center was offering a healthcare management course as part of the academic internship program, I knew this would be a great experience to see if healthcare management was something I could really see myself doing in the future. After I enrolled in the healthcare management course, I immediately reached out to Susan Downey at St. Mary. In my short time working with St. Mary at the nonprofit conference, I had felt welcomed by Susan, her staff, and the residents, and I knew that a small long-term care facility like St. Mary would be a great place to get hands-on experience in healthcare administration. I was extremely grateful when Susan gave me the opportunity to shadow her for my internship. In just 4 short months, I was able to learn about long-term care and the reality of what it is like to be a healthcare administrator. A few of the opportunities I was fortunate to have were meeting with officials from the Massachusetts Department of Health, sitting in on weekly financial reports, and attending morning meetings that discuss the clinical statuses of residents. As I was thrown into the administrative responsibilities, I also had the privilege of spending time with residents. Whether it was passing meals and chatting with residents at lunch in the dining room or making snowflakes to hang on the windows during the Christmas season, my time at St. Mary was something I looked forward to every week. It was a time to engage with the residents of the facility and extend a hand to the staff that works tirelessly every day to make St. Mary feel like home for residents and their family. As I became more acquainted with the residents throughout the semester, I again became intrigued with the challenges that our elderly population is facing. As a resident I'd gotten to know through my internship, Beverly had moved from Florida to live at St. Mary after suffering a stroke. And while she'd been at St. Mary for a while, she had still told me that she had difficulty adjusting to her new home. In my time working at St. Mary, I became invested in researching the prevalence of mental health issues among the aging population, and specifically how we as a community can improve the quality of life for this individual group of people. The classes I was taking at the time, such as my medical anthropology class and healthcare management seminar, allowed me to look deeper into the government policies surrounding long-term care funding, as well as the way the United States cares for our elderly population in comparison to other countries. I was able to think critically on improvements to this system that would allow for a better quality of life for the rapidly rising aging population in our nation and in the world. In the midst of interning at St. Mary, I was applying to master's programs for public health, and as I was reflecting on both of my internships, I realized that what I found most invigorating were discovering the systemic issues that promoted negative health outcomes in both the aging population and the homeless. At both Care for the Homeless and St. Mary, I worked with administrators and staff that dedicated their time to creating solutions that would promote positive health outcomes, and I knew this is how I wanted to make a difference. Therefore, I decided to apply to master's programs with a concentration in population health or community science practices, which will allow me to continue to study vulnerable populations such as the aging and the homeless, and work to create programs that will promote positive health outcomes in these communities. 4 years ago, when I came to Holy Cross, I was questioning how I would combine my passions for literature, healthcare, and public service into a career. Through the courses I was taking in English and health studies and my volunteer work through SPUD, I was able to divulge in all of these interests. However, as I reached my junior year, I was still conflicted on how I can combine these interests into a future career. Throughout my experiences at the nonprofit conference, the New York semester program, and the academic internship program, I realized that a career in public health is the perfect field to combine these interests. In studying and working with vulnerable populations, I will be able to tell the stories of populations that struggle to live healthy lives, and I will then be able to work directly with the individuals within these communities by creating programs that can improve health literacy and accessibility. I'm extremely grateful for the opportunities that I've had with the J.D. Power Center and the Donlin Community-Based Learning Office, since they've allowed me to realize that how I can combine my passions into a career that will help me help others. In conclusion, I highly encourage Holy Cross students to take advantage of these opportunities, and I'm sure they will enhance your education and allow you to find what you're passionate about, as they have for me. Thank you. And with that, I would just like to invite Will back up for a few more closing remarks. So in the past 4 years, Will and I have been able to discern our postgraduate plans through the opportunities and the help we've had from the J.D. Power Center and the Community-Based Learning Office. So for underclassmen, what does this mean for your experience at Holy Cross? I would just say follow what you're truly passionate about and find ways to pursue those passions outside of the classroom. If you're interested in the New York semester program, Mary Ann Finn and Professor Klingard are wonderful resources, along with the Center for Career Development. And if you're interested in the academic internship program, again, Professor Klingard and Mary Ann Finn are wonderful resources. Also, don't be hesitant in reaching out to students who have participated in these programs. My fellow classmates in the New York semester program and the academic internship program had a really wide range of internships, whether that be at UMass Medical, NBC Nightly News, and even in the office of a New York City congresswoman. So the best way to learn about the possibilities for your own education and experiences is to reach out to students who were once in the same position as you.
Similar to what Julia touched on, what can this mean for you as a student at Holy Cross? I by no means accomplished any of this on my own. At many steps along the way, I received assistance from faculty and staff here at Holy Cross as well as at St. Mary. Applying for a Marshall Grant is a reachable goal and can greatly benefit your education, your site, and other Holy Cross students that go there. These topics for the grants are broad. You can see that my grant applications of Amazon Kindles and a garden could not be any more different. The main requirement is that the grant fosters connection between Holy Cross students and the organization that you are working with in Worcester. As Isabel said, the next deadline is February 12th, the last one for the year, so get your applications in. So in closing, there's a quote here by Neil Donald Walsh. It says, "Life begins at the end of your comfort zone." Julie and I urge you to take that leap. Get off this great campus of Mount St. James and see what Worcester has to offer. There's so much that you can learn from it. Think of an idea and apply for a Marshall Grant. Get involved in a CBL course. Get involved in AIP. Apply for the New York semester program. The staff of the J.D. Power Center and many students such as Julie and I are here to help. Reach out, take the leap, and make the most of your 4 years here. With that, that's in conclusion. So thank you all for coming tonight, and especially thank you to the St. Mary staff that's here for your continuous support.
Thank you so much. I'm going to keep you up here, and we have time for a few questions or comments if anybody wants to ask our great presenters more about what their experience is.
I have a question for Will.
Jana.
Hey, Jana.
So, what are the skills you've learned at St. Mary's, and how do you think you apply them to your time in the Navy?
Making me think, Jana, come on. All right, well, so the first half of that question, so I guess what have I learned? So I think I've learned how compassion can be a thing in the classroom as well as in a real life experience. I never thought that coursework would be able to tie in directly into things that you experience on a day-to-day basis, but at the St. Mary's Center, I completely saw that. And Jeannie Ryan's class, we read a book, I'm blanking on the name of it, the big one. Thank you. Far from the Tree. Thank you. You know, it's like 800 pages. Yeah. But anyway, in that book, there's like different sections on different communities. And I saw even just for the elderly, there's communities among the deaf community and many others. So I learned how that was tangible. In regards to the Navy, in particular, Commander Cliff, that guy, he was in for like 25 years. So he taught me just kind of, if you take a hit, just keep going. So with that, I'm going to try to take that in stride for the next step. Thank you.
Yeah.
I have a question for Julia.
Yeah.
Can you talk a little bit about some of your favorite memories from Care for the Homeless?
Yeah, I can. I think one of my favorite memories from Care for the Homeless was probably the focus groups. As an operations intern, I was doing a lot of like the logistical behind the scenes of creating the healthcare centers and the shelters. So the focus groups are where we went to our shelters, and we had about 12 or 13 people experiencing homelessness kind of share what they felt like they needed more of in terms of healthcare. But in those groups, it actually just was a time where they would tell us like the things that they loved about the healthcare services that we were providing them. So they spoke so highly of our staff and also of just how they felt really cared for. So I think that like personal time that I got with some of our clients was probably some of the things I'll remember most from my experience.
It's not a question, it's a comment, but it's so clear to me, as you two shared tonight, that this whole sense of a liberal arts education, which obviously, this is one of the things that Holy Cross banks on in terms of an appeal to students. But it's so clear to me that the experiential learning aspect for both of you, without that, I don't know. I don't think it would be the kind of fullness of a liberal arts experience that really transforms lives. So, I don't know if you want to say anything about that, but I'm just so aware of it, that it would be, how could we ever go backwards now that we've opened up the doors to the possibilities that come with just engaging with communities. You two are really impressive.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Oh, no, I would definitely agree, actually. Just like my internships between St. Mary and Care for the Homeless, we have like a lot of daily assignments at Holy Cross, but being able to see how like our classwork is so directly related to the work that we do, I think Will and I can both kind of attest to that. It's really, our classwork has really helped us kind of see what we can do in the community. So I think we're really excited to pursue that in our postgraduate plans.
And then also like here at the college, in a research lab that I work in, Professor Baxton in the back, we study aging stem cells within dogs. But it's really interesting working with an elderly population and seeing, how this is actual tangible research that could one day make a difference.
Yeah.
So it is pretty neat to learn. Jack.
As you are about to leave here and graduate, what legacy would you like to see have left with your work with the St. Mary's Center, and what future do you see with the relationship between Holy Cross and the St. Mary's Center?
Okay. Good question. Thank you, Jack. On that same tangent, the amount of forms that I've given to Sandy in the past few days for St. Mary, so I don't think St. Mary can take any more Holy Cross students this year. So I don't think that's happened yet in my time. So I think the Holy Cross word for St. Mary has spread. So I'm happy to hear that as a legacy in that regard. Also, the newspaper subscriptions and the Kindles, and then also the garden will be there well past, me and May. So.
Can I say something?
Sure.
I think that you have touched on almost every aspect of everyone who works and lives there. There's not a staff member, a family member, a resident that does not love on a sunny day going out to the garden and just looking as the picture of the resident just, enjoying the fresh air and looking. She actually grew up on a farm, and so flowers and gardening meant a lot to her, the woman who was in one of the pictures just staring. But what you and Megan did with Sister Ellen as she was journeying into her, as she was passing, which actually was a year from tomorrow night, these two young students, young adults, came to say goodbye to this resident the night before she passed. That's a whole mind, body, spirit investment that you had in Sister Ellen, and it touched everyone. And a community service project can really be heartfelt and meaningful. Commander Cliff, heartfelt, meaningful. It's not just doing your time, and when Isabel says, have all the students been there? I can say, yes, the Holy Cross students are there. And for both of you, I did not work as closely with Julia as Susan did, but certainly will for 4 years. You know, you gave it your all, and we feel it. We know that you've been there.
Thank you, Sandy.
Thank you.
I think those are beautiful words to end on. And folks who don't know, we do have Sandy and Susan from St. Mary right up here in the front row. And it's just, I've had tears in my eyes all evening just hearing from you both and seeing you both get to witness this. It's just really been beautiful. And all of this happens because you open your doors to Holy Cross students and care for them in ways that we can't care for them or provide for them. So thank you so much. And thank you both for sharing your experiences. And thank you everyone for coming. It's been a great evening.
Okay. Thank you so much. Thank you. Good. Oh my God, they were like crying the whole time. I know. That was so nice, though. It was so nice.
The timing of everything was
Yeah, it was good.